From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang in Review, and I'm your host, Leo Magpayo. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said 7 individuals with warrants of arrest linked to the flood control anomaly are now in the custody of authorities. In a video message posted on his official Facebook page on Monday, the president said 2 more are set to surrender, while 7 remain at large, including Zaldico. Officials are urging the remaining suspects to turn themselves in. They also warned that anyone aiding these fugitives will be held accountable under the law.
Magandang araw po sa inyo lahat. Muli po ako magre-report sa inyo tungkol sa mga iba't ibang development doon sa mga flood control project na kaso at para malaman po ng ating minamahal na taong bayan kung ano na ang naging progreso. 7 na po sa mga individual na may warrant of arrest sa Sandigan Bayan kaugnay sa mga flood control anomalya ang nasa kustodya na ng ating mga otoridad. Isa naman sa kanila na inaresto ng NBI at 6 naman ay voluntaryong sumuko sa CIDG. Meron din 2 akusado po na nagpahayag na ng intensyon na sumuko at susundin na ang PNP CIDG. Yung isa pong nahuli ng NBI ay natagpuan doon hindi sa kanyang sariling tirahan. Kaya't mananagot din yung mga nagtatago sa kanila. At kaya't sinasabi natin yung mga may balak na tulungan itong mga ito ay ang pinakamalaking tulong na ibigay ninyo sa kanila ay mag-surrender na sila at para makasagot na sila dito sa mga aligasyon na hinaharap nila. Wala pong mga special treatment itong mga ito. Mananatili sila sa kustodya ng NBI habang inaantay ang utos ng korte. Muli, sa 3 warrant at 16 na pangalan, 7 na ang hawak ng ating otoridad. 2 susuko na. 7 ang mananatiling at large at kasama na dyan si Saldico. Sa lahat ng natitirang akusado, ang aking payo sa inyo ay sumuko na kayo. Huwag nyo nang antayin na habul-habulin pa kayo. Mas maganda para sa sitwasyon ninyo na sumuko na kayo para maganda ang inyong pagsagot sa mga aligasyon na dinala kontra sa inyo. Sa mga nagtatangkang tumulong sa pagtatago, tandaan ninyo na kahit papaano mananagot din kayo kung kayo ay nagtatago ng isang fugitive from justice. Tuloy-tuloy po ito. Hindi kami titigil, hindi kami hihinto. Maraming salamat po.
Was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday introduced a new artificial intelligence or AI-driven transparency portal for the Department of Public Works and Highways or DPWH, calling it his administration's strongest reform initiative yet, following months of revelations about ghost projects, kickbacks, and irregularities in flood control programs. Speaking at a Malacañang press briefing, the president described the portal as the 3rd phase of government action against the scandal. After exposing defective or non-existent projects and identifying those accountable, he said the next step is systematic reform. President Marcos noted that even local officials had been barred by contractors from inspecting projects, underscoring the need for public oversight. The chief executive urged the public to scrutinize projects and flag irregularities, stressing that transparency is central to restoring trust as corruption cases move forward in the Ombudsman and Sandigan Bayan.
One of the things, isa sa pinakamahalagang bagay na maliwanag na lumabas sa lahat ng mga investigasyon, sa lahat ng mga pangyayari, ay nawalan tayo ng transparency. hindi nakikita ng tao kung ano talaga ang pangyayari sa loob ng pamahalaan. Kaya naman kung ano-anong ginagawa, walang nagsusumbong dahil hindi nakikita na itatago nila. Etong mga wrongdoers na ito, tinatago nila yung kanilang kalokohan. Dahil hindi naman masilip ng pangkaraniwan na tao o kahit ng mga opisyal kung minsan. Maalala ninyo, there was a case that a governor wanted to inspect a flood control project. Yung kontratista ayaw papasukin yung governor doon sa mismong may pulis pa silang kasama. Pinigilan yung governor. That's how bad all of the transparency situation was. Kaya tayo nandito ngayon upang i-roll out, that means use the word, the DPWH Transparency Portal. And ito ay isang sistema na ating binuo upang kahit sino, hindi kailangan opisyal, kahit sino na kung nais nilang maghanap na impormasyon tungkol sa isang project, tungkol sa project dun sa kanilang lugar, ay maaari nilang gawin. Kaya paulit-ulit kong sinasabi, lahat ng ating mga kapwa Pilipino, huwag kayong magdalawang isip na meron kayong isumbong ninyo para mapag-aralan namin, matignan namin, ma-assess namin kung talagang may problema o hindi. Para naman mas madali ang pagtatanong, meron tayong AI, gumagamit na tayo ng AI assistant na sasagot sa inyong specific queries sa Pilipino man o sa Ingles. Dinisenyo ito para makatiyak na kahit hindi ka techie, kahit hindi ka technical, madaling-madaling ayusin ito. English at saka Pinoy at saka Tagalog, pwedeng gamitin ito. Ito mas komprehensibo sa ating sumbong sa Pangulo website dahil talagang napakarami na ang informasyon. Ang Transparency Portal ay hindi lang isang website. Ito ay isang pangako. Ito ay isang sagot na digital na pader laban sa korupsyon ay magpapatibay sa ating paniniwala. Ang pamahalaan bukas, tapat at nakikinig sa sambayanan. Kaya hiyakatin natin ang bawat Pilipino na makialam kayo, magtanong at mag-monitor. Gamitin natin ang bagong portal na ito. Magkasama natin itayo ang isang bagong Pilipinas mas maayos, mas matibay na infrastruktura at buo ang tiwala ng tao sa kanilang pamahalaan.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Monday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. brushed aside fresh allegations from former lawmaker Zaldy Ko, saying his statements carry no weight unless he returns to the Philippines to face the cases filed against him over alleged anomalies in flood control projects. Ko, in a new video message circulated on social media, claimed that more than 56 billion pesos in kickbacks from questionable infrastructure projects were delivered to his residence. President Marcos stressed that accountability can only be established through legal proceedings, questioning why Ko remains overseas if he insists on his innocence. The Sandigan Bayan has issued arrest warrants against Ko and several others tied to an allegedly anomalous flood control project in Oriental Mindoro Province where his firm served as contractor. 7 of Ko's co-accused are already in custody, while others are coordinating with authorities for their surrender.
Well, look at the quality of the statements. Alam mo, mahaba nang naging mga usapan natin tungkol sa fake news. Anyone can go online and make all kinds of claims and say all kinds of things. Paulit-ulit. But it means nothing. For it to mean something, umuwi siya rito. Harapin niya yung mga kaso niya. Kung meron siyang gusto sabihin, sabihin niya. Malalaman naman ng tao yan. Patunayan. But come home. Come home. Ba't ka nagtatago sa malayo? Ako, hindi ako nagtatago eh. Kung meron kang akusasyon sa akin, nandito ako. Gawin niyo ang pareho. At para patas lang naman.
Was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday expressed the Philippines' readiness to forge cooperation with global partners to address plastic pollution, which he described as emblematic of this new era of challenges. President Marcos acknowledged that the plastic waste crisis affects biodiversity, public health, supply chains, and the lives of coastal and urban communities, and requires the use of technology that is credible, scalable, and grounded in rigorous science to address the problem. He welcomed the Nuclear Technology for Controlling Plastic Pollution, or NUTEC Plastics initiative of the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, as a very important solution to a very difficult problem that we face locally and globally. The President noted that the recent signing of Republic Act, or RA 12305, or the Philippine Nuclear Law signals the country's readiness for deeper science-driven cooperation with international partners. RA 12305 is the country's first comprehensive regulatory framework covering nuclear safety, security safeguards, and the peaceful applications of nuclear technology. President Marcos, who will serve as Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Chair in 2026, said, NUTEC Plastics can serve as a model for the regional bloc's collaboration on science-based solutions to transboundary problems.
NUTEC Plastic embodies the kind of innovation that we need. Solutions that merge advanced nuclear applications with environmental protection, to translate scientific progress into tangible benefits for industry and for society. Our scientific institutions here in the Philippines have embraced this challenge, building on the strength of international scientific cooperation. Under the Post-Radiation Reactive Extrusion of Plastic Waste Project, or PREX, the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute of the Department of Science and Technology, together with the Industrial Technology Development Institute as its industry partner, and Virotech, have developed a breakthrough process that transforms low-value plastic waste into durable, commercially viable materials. The PREX prototype house stands today as a tangible output of this initiative. But beyond a demonstration of breakthrough nuclear technology, it is a prototype of the future circular economy. It shows how radiation technology can enhance polymer properties, reduce material degradation, create new industrial uses for plastics where there were none before. And this is how innovation reshapes the sector, by converting to what we once called waste into new value.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Tuesday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. praised the country's first grid-connected, utility-scale solar rooftop installation erected within a socialized housing complex in Cavite Province, describing it as a standard for the country's expedited transition to renewable energy. President Marcos visited the 6.55 megawatt peak, or MWP, Ningning Solar Rooftop Power Facility in Pasinayan Homes Prime Central, or PHPC, created by the Joy Nostalg Group, Gin Navita Solaris Incorporated, or Solaris, and Raimulan Lands Incorporated. The facility taps the rooftops of 1,986 residences, each with 6 solar panels. According to President Marcos, this initiative is the world's first grid-connected solar power system located within a communal housing neighborhood. The project is consistent with the Department of Energy or DOE's goals for the Green Energy Auction Program or GEA-4, the Renewable Portfolio Standards, and the Sustainable Finance Framework, all of which aim to increase the renewable percentage of the national energy mix. The Philippines aims to achieve 35% renewable energy by 2030 and 50% by 2040. President Marcos noted that the project exemplifies the creative and innovative solutions needed as the country confronts climate concerns and the global shift away from fossil fuels. The chief executive also pledged to improve government processes to encourage more renewable investment.
It's an initiative that is a monumental one as it lights up homes and the path forward to the country's energy transition. Solaris and Raymulan Lands have done something quite remarkable. They adopt renewable technology innovations right here on the rooftops of Filipino families here in Naik. Halos 2,000 tahanan ang kasama sa proyektong ito. Bawat isa sa kanila ay pinagkukunan ng malinis na enerhiya dahil sa mga solar panel na nakalagay sa kanilang mga bubong. Ito po ang kaunahang grid-connected, utility-scale solar project sa buong mundo na matatagpuan sa isang socialized housing community. Higit pang nakakahanga ang Ningning Project. Hindi lang solar technology ang hatid nito sa atin, nagbibigay din ng suporta at ng kita dito sa mga nakatira dito. Gamit ang bahagi ng kita rito, matutustusan ang pag-aayos ng bubong ng mga bahay, mga panatiling bukas ang ilaw at kalsada, mapapatupad ang maayos na pamahala sa basura at magkakaroon ng shared solar facility at iba't ibang training para sa mga residente. In other words, the energy that we produce here will power a better life for the people who live in this community, but even beyond this community. Because although there are advantages, there are benefits to those living in this community, there is also the benefit to the grid because you are providing additional power, which we all know is something that we need. Dahil gamit natin ang mga bubong ng mga bahay na naitayo na, walang ginamit na farmland, walang tinanggal na kabuhayan at walang nasayang na lupa.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. challenged local government units or LGUs on Wednesday to improve transparency and participatory governance, underlining that public trust builds when people can plainly see how taxpayer-funded initiatives are carried out. President Marcos spoke at the Subaybayani Awards 2025 at the Manila Hotel, emphasizing the significance of transparency in all government programs and projects to prevent corruption, as well as the need for high standards in public service delivery. The President noted that when the public has access to government procedures, they become more empowered as our partners in promoting accountability. President Marcos pointed out that the newly opened Department of Public Works and Highways or DPWH Transparency Portal, which strives to ensure that infrastructure projects are visible, examined, monitored, and useful to the community. The Transparency Portal allowed the public to watch every phase of infrastructure project implementation, from purchase to foundation laying to utilization. During the occasion, President Marcos recognized 126 LGUs, 9 top overall performers, and 3 Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG regional offices for their exceptional collaboration and evidence-based monitoring. The President instructed the honorees to maintain high standards.
Tandaan natin na ang mamamayang Pilipino ay nagmamasid at may karapatang pumuna. At tayong mga nasa gobyerno ang tagapanday at tagahatid ng tunay at maaasahan na serbisyo. Continue to show that the public can trust and rely on their public servants. High quality. High quality remains our standard. A government worthy of its people does not settle for mediocrity, does not cut corners, does not waver. We strive for excellence because that is what our citizens deserve, and that is what our country deserves. So let us prove that when the public has access to government processes, they become more empowered as our partners in promoting accountability. That is why, and I say this with my as a firm belief, we must further strengthen an open and participative governance at all levels.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Wednesday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. announced that the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, and the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, will present evidence to the Ombudsman recommending the filing of plunder, graft, bribery, and conflict of interest cases against 8 lawmakers allegedly involved in irregular flood control projects. In his most recent public report on the government's ongoing flood control probe, President Marcos said that the investigation had revealed lawmakers who reportedly own construction companies with contracts in districts that they control. The president, however, chose not to disclose the lawmakers' names. President Marcos has been providing frequent updates on the nationwide flood control audit in response to complaints about overpriced contracts, anomalous procurement, and ghost projects. The study focuses on billions of dollars in public works projects that have been implemented over several years in multiple regions. President Marcos further said that the Anti-Money Laundering Council, or AMLAC, has issued 2 freeze orders totaling around 12 billion pesos in assets thought to be tied to anomalous contracts. These include aircraft valued at approximately 4 billion pesos, 3,566 bank accounts, 198 insurance policies, 247 automobiles, 178 real estate assets, and 16 e-wallet accounts. The chief executive emphasized the goal of recovering public revenues lost due to corruption.
Yung AMLAC, yung Anti-Money Laundering Council, nakakuha na po ng 2 freeze order. This brings the total amount of assets frozen to about 12 billion pesos. Kasama po dito ang mga air asset ni Saldico, ang value mga 4 billion. At bukod pa ron, meron po tayong nakuhang 3,566 na bank account, 198 insurance policies, 247 motor vehicles, 178 real properties, 16 na e-wallet account, at saka air asset na frozen na. Umpisa lang po ito. Mas marami pong asset ay mafo-frozen para maibalik ang pera ng tao sa kanila. Ito po ang aming pangako that the money of the people will be given back to the people. Meron din pong development, yung ICI at saka ang DPWH, magsusumite po ng ebidensya sa Ombudsman and magrekomenda sila ng kaso ng plunder, anti-graft, bribery, conflict of interest sa 8 congressman na may-ari ng mga construction company na may proyekto sa DPWH.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. claimed that a lawyer representing former lawmaker Zaldico attempted to blackmail the government by urging officials not to cancel Co's passport in exchange for halting the release of additional online videos containing accusations against the administration. In his last report on the flood control probe, President Marcos stated that Co's lawyer called Malacañang and threatened to stop publishing his tell-all videos online if the government did not cancel the former lawmaker's passport. The president strongly opposed this decision.
Hinapitan po kami ng abogado ni Saldico. at nagtatangkang mag-blackmail na kung hindi po namin kakanselihin daw ang passport niya, hindi na raw siya maglalabas ng video. I do not negotiate with criminals. Kahit maglabas ka na ng video ng lahat ng kasinungalingan mo na pag-destabilize sa gobyerno, gusto kong malaman mo, Saldi, makakansela pa rin ang passport mo. Hindi ka na makakatakas sa hustisya.
Ko, who has been tied to alleged corruption in flood control projects, has been posting a series of web videos in which he accuses various officials of misconduct, including the President and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. The government previously stated that Ko is subject to a Blue Notice request, which allows law enforcement organizations abroad to trace his movements. President Marcos reaffirmed that the asset freeze is part of the administration's commitment to recovering public cash lost due to corruption.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday pledged 15 million pesos in support of the President Corazon Aquino General Hospital, more commonly known as Baseco Hospital, located in the Baseco Compound, Manila. The President made the announcement during his visit to the facility, commending its service to the community. President Marcos praised the strong collaboration between local and national governments in strengthening Manila's healthcare system. The chief executive also recognized Mayor Isko Moreno for allocating public funds to modernize health facilities and procure new medical equipment for the city. President Marcos Jr. emphasized that the additional funding from the Office of the President will help sustain operations and improve services for the community, ensuring that residents of Baseco Compound continue to receive accessible and quality health care.
Kaya't nakita natin na napakahalaga ng serbisyo, lalong-lalo na kapag pinag-uusapan ay ang kalusugan ng ating mga kababayan. At sa bawat araw, more or less dito, 200, 220 na pasyente ang dumadaan dito. Kaya't marami talaga ang nagiging beneficiary dito dahil sa magandang healthcare na ginagawa ng pagkakaisa ng local government at saka ng national government. Lahat ng ginagawa ng national government sa lahat ng ating mga kababayan. At yun ay hindi maaaring mangyari kung hindi matibay ang koordinasyon, pagsasama, pagtutulungan ng local government at saka ng national government. Kapag naman nangyari yan, nakita naman ninyo ang nagiging resulta. Ito ay ginawa ng ating local government. Kami naman sa national government, kagaya ng nabanggit ni Mayor, ay lahat ng suporta, lahat ng benepisyo na maaring gawin ng pamahalaan ay gagawin natin. Para po tulungan pa ang inyong ginagawa, dahil ang katotohanan, na-impress kami masyado. Kaya sabi ko, tulungan naman natin. Kaya't mula sa tanggapan ng Pangulo, dadagdagan po natin yung suporta ng 15 milyong piso para sa Baseco Hospital. Makakatulong po ito sa mga pangangailangan ninyo.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. praised the newly inaugurated San Lazaro Residences in Santa Cruz, Manila, describing it as a model that the national government and local government units, or LGUs, could replicate to deliver affordable and dignified housing in crowded urban centers. The 20-story vertical housing project, built on the former Manila Public Health Laboratory site, integrates health and residential services. The first 4 floors house the upgraded Manila Public Health Laboratory and the Lanuza Health Center, while the upper levels provide 382 residential units. The President commended the Manila City government's initiative as a demonstration of responsive leadership. President Marcos also noted the city's efficiency in completing housing projects, citing one development under Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso that was finished in just 3 months.
Pagka nakita ng ibang LGU ito, gagayahin ito, asahan mo. Dahil napakagandang modelo itong ginawa ninyo. Ito ay bahagi ng tinatawag ng Maynila na in-city housing program. Nagsimula po ito, baka alam na ninyo, yung condominium. Yun ang nauna, condominium 1 and 2. Sumunod na yung binondominium, yung Pedro Hill Residence, yung dinadaan-daanan natin sa Skyway. Tapos San Sebastian Residence at saka yung Base Community. Yung po ang dinaanan din po namin. Galing din po kami sa Baseco Hospital para makita kung ano yung mga facilities para sa ating mga kababayan doon. At masasabi ko nga ulit, napakaganda naman at maayos. At sa palagay ko, si kagaya ng sabi ko doon sa Baseco, napakapalad ninyo na ang liderato ng lungsod ng Maynila ay talagang malapit sa tao, nauunawaan ang pangangailangan ng ating mga kababayan at hindi lamang nauunawaan kung hindi ginagawang kaagad ng solusyon. Naiinggit nga ako, sinasabi ni Jorme, yung isang housing na ginawa na sa 3 months. Ilang unit yon? 200 plus units. Panaginip lang sa amin yun sa NHA at saka sa DSUD na ganun kabilis. Kailangan na magpaturo kami sa inyo kung paano ginagawa yan. Ikaw na mag-in-charge doon para mabilis ang pabahay natin.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.